My great nation, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to greet you all cordially with the love and affection. Welcome to the presidential complex, the house of our nation. Well, I really wish to be able to fill those two stores upwards as well, but most probably there was a communication problem, and that is the reason why only the first floor could be filled. But I hope that in the upcoming meeting we will be able to fill the upper stores as well, so it will turn into a wonderful organization. Combating violence against domestic violence against women, Fourth National Action Plan, may it be auspicious for all women in Turkey, to our nation, and to all of our institutions. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate the Ministry of Family and Social Services and anyone who contributed to the preparation of this program. At the same time, I would like to thank all our institutions and all the parties who contributed to the preparation of our National Action Plan via their critics and recommendation. And at the same time, I hope that the measures taken under the scope of our National Action Plan will be realized in the swiftest time possible. My great nation, we know that the human beings prevail among the creatures that we know and that we unknown, and the rest of the creatures will be inferior to the human beings. And as you know, the family can be a reality with the coexistence of men and women. Only after that, the institutions like family will be meaningful. The mentality which deems human beings superior or inferior to each other just because of their gender has no place in our culture and in our civilization. Whenever there is a problem, on one side there is man and on the other side there is woman. Well, the woman has the same level of responsibilities like men in terms of our sensitivities like protecting the family. If the structure of our family is distorted, then the responsibility cannot be deemed to women or men only. If this is the case, it means that we are overlooking half and 50% of the problem. So if there is domestic violence against women, it means that there is also a perpetrator who implements this violence. That's why after we come to office, combating domestic violence against women has always been one of our priorities. Personally speaking, I always followed this issue and I always supported every positive step taken in order to combat this problem, because we know that this sensitive topic can only be solved via a different variety of policies which we have done so far. In the recent times, certain groups have always criticized our decision of withdrawing from the Istanbul Convention. They try to present this unilateral withdrawal as a backlash in our fight for the violence against the woman. Our combat against the violence against women didn't start with the Istanbul Convention, and it will not come to an end after our withdrawal. We have shared our reasons why we unilaterally withdrew from this convention with the public. So all the measures and precautions that we have taken so far and all the regulations that we have enacted so far was to embrace the rights of the woman, because we respect our women before everything else for the fact that they are human beings. And in addition to that, as we combated the domestic violence against women in the past, we will continue to give this fight in the future as well. We know that this fight requires a long-term ambition and at the same time a societal consensus. If we want to eradicate the violence against women, it will only be a reality with the participation of each stakeholders in our society. As we fight the violence against, anyone in the society, we are specifically underlying the violence against women because it requires a higher level sensitivity. Violence against women is affected by many factors, and it is much more different from the ordinary violence targeted to anyone else. That's why we believe that the factors leading to the violence against women should be assessed and eradicated at all costs. Violence against women lead to dangers for the life of women, but at the same time disable women from enjoying her rights, like participating in the labor force or education. If this violence takes place inside of a family, unfortunately the children will be subject to this trauma as well. The children who learns violence as a way of behavior most probably will turn up themselves as the perpetrators of violence in the future. Regardless of the reasons, the domestic violence will directly and negatively have an impact on women and children. As we assess this problem, we will realize that our nation is also indirectly negatively affected by this violence. Violence increases the crime rate and the rate of depression. That's why we should combat violence against women just like we are fighting against the pandemic without letting it to be manipulated for the political gains. And we should do our best with all our efforts so that our women can protect their dignity and honor. But the violence against women, which deteriorates the honor and the dignity of our women, is not the problem of Turkey, but all other countries. So this global problem is tried to be tackled with legal regulations via a specialization in the fields of prevention and early intervention. Both on the central and local government level, we are enacting and implementing our social policies with the contribution coming from the relevant stakeholders. That's why we are undoubtedly continue with our fight against violence against the woman. That's why we are updating our national action plan, which we prepared for the first time in 2007. The societal, cultural and the technological changes taking place both inside and outside of the Turkey requires us to develop the preventive measures in this field. This national action plan also aims to embrace all those changes that I have just mentioned. Today, we will be sharing with you the fourth National Action Plan regarding to combating the violence against women. Will also include new titles which is required in our fight for violence against the woman. As we assess the main factors, we see that we are in need of a multi-dimensional and interdisciplinary approach in our fights for preventing the violence against the woman. In 2006, we have taken the first step after enacting the Prime Ministry circular. In order to establish the societal consensus and consistency, we have defined the main priorities in the scope of our three National Action Plan, which had been implemented quite successfully. From time to time, we also changed the relevant articles in our Constitution, thereby strengthening the relevant legislation for combating the violence against women. The enactment of the law number 6282 was a very important turning point in our fight. With this law being enacted, Turkey became one of the top countries having the most effective, comprehensive and inclusive legislation for combating violence against the woman, because we know that thanks to legislation, we have progressed a lot in our fight targeting the violence against women. First and foremost, without discriminating between disability, sickness, religious beliefs, ethnicity, our women are subject or may be subject to violence. Any woman, men and children who might be subject to violence will be aimed to be followed thanks to this legislation. As it can be seen very easily, it doesn't matter whether men, women, people with disability or without disability are subject to violence. So this law covers anyone who might be under the jeopardy of being subject to violence. Of course, the women and children are taking the foreground in terms of those jeopardies. The institutional structure was established thanks to this legislation. The implementation of the preventive measures have been put into place, and in order to realize them, the violence prevention centers have also been founded in Turkey. Today, in 81 provinces of Turkey, those violence prevention centers are contributing greatly to our fight targeting violence against the woman. Via our new National Action Plan, we are strengthening our combat in terms of the violence against the woman. And this National Action Plan will cover the time frame between 2021 and 2025. And our National Action Plan is also prepared with the representatives of the media, universities, and the NGOs, and it is quite a high volume book which has 5 main targets and 28 strategic points and 227 action points. I think that this book has been distributed to each one of you in this hall. So this comprehensive policy document aiming to eradicate this problem totally is being presented to your discretion today. For the upcoming 5 years, we will follow those main priorities, and those main priorities are clearly articulated and uttered in this plan. So, those priorities will enable the sufferers to reach out to justice. So, all the programs and the policies will integrate those measures. The protective and the preventive measures will be strengthened in that regard, and the societal awareness and the sensitivity will be boosted thanks to this National Action Plan. And we will also collect systematic and comparative data, and they will be reassessed from time to time. Of course, within the framework of changing conditions and arising brand new needs, we will continue to take every administrative and legal precautions whatsoever. My great nation, once again, I would like to share with you that the first priority of the 4th National Action Plan is aiming to reassess the legislation targeting the prevention of the violence, so that the sufferers will be easily reaching out to justice, so that the violent acts will be sanctioned in an increasing rate. From the education and training of the public judges and prosecutors are also uttered in this 22 main priorities of the relevant National Action Plan. Within the coordination of our Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Family and Social Services, the DG Religious Affairs, and with the Ministry of Healthcare Services, the necessary protocols have been undersigned so far. Within the scope of the protective and violence prevention centers, the provincial monitoring commissions have been founded as well. So those commissions are gathering together at least 2 times in a year within the supervision of our governors. And at the same time, the sociological risk factors are taken into consideration as we prepare our provincial action plan regarding to combating violence against women. And we also founded the technical committee regarding to this issue, and this committee convenes every 3 months, and they continue with their activities. By assessing the factors which are aggravating the crimes, bullying for marriages and cyber violence are planned to be reassessed from scratch. And in the case of conflicts, we also made our analysis based on unjust provocation, so the necessary changes will be put into practice. The second priority of our National Action Plan focuses on a total fight targeting the violence against women, and 5 strategic points has been defined so far. One of them is about preparing the policies in a comprehensive and inclusive manner, allocation of the necessary budget for preventing the violence, the coordination between different sectors, and the realization of the action plan in 81 different provinces, and monitoring of the national and provincial plans might be articulated as the 5 main strategic points. On this occasion, every public officials will be trained and educated regarding to this sensitive topic, and the cooperation and collaboration will be strengthened with any probable and possible stakeholders, and at the same time the capacity building activities for the relevant committees will be carried out. The third aim of our national action plan is the effective provision of the preventive and protective measures. In order to realize our national action plan, we should make sure that the cases are intervened on a timely fashion, and case-basis special intervention practices will be put into practice, and the capacity of the police forces in that regard will be increased, and at the same time the victims of the violence will have an easier route to healthcare services, and at the same time the prevention services will be prepared in order to make sure that those perpetrations are not taking place, and the number of the activities in that regard will reach to 65. My great nation, the basis of combating violence against the woman is about protecting the probable victims and the preventive measures, and as a result the services, the institutional services in that regard is increasing its importance. That's why preventing violence and eradicating it can only be a reality only with the rightly designed institutional structures and programs. That's why via SHÖNİM, the violence monitoring and prevention centers, the institutional services are already in place in all the cities and provinces of Turkey. In all our provinces, we have 360 social services centers, and we have the liaison offices for preventing the violence, and we make sure that the victims can easily reach out to those centers. The legal healthcare services and employment services and at the same time scholarship to the kids of the victims are being provided to them, and after they leave those centers, the psychosocial support is being provided to the victims of the violence, and at the same time we make sure that those women can benefit from the employment opportunities via trainings and vocational educations, because we know that it is much better to prevent violence before it takes place. That's why we try to make sure that the anger control can come to fruition via educations. By tackling the drug abuse and alcohol abuse of the perpetrators, we believe that those activities will yield remarkable results. Those activities will be carried out together with legal activities like probation, and at the same time the violence monitoring and prevention centers. Up until now, 682,000 women, 54,000 men, and 90,000 women has been given service, thereby adding to a total number of 830,000. In 149 women's shelter, our capacity for providing such services is going up to 365,000 individuals. In 9 of our provinces, additional women's shelter houses will be opened as well. The current ones will be renewed based on the needs of our women and children. And our women who are under the danger of violence will be taken care of in our specialized women's shelter. And at the same time, we will give the necessary support whatsoever to our women who are applying to those shelters. In order to increase the quality of the services in those centers, the service standards and the self-assessment guidelines have been prepared for those centers. And we are making use of the communication technologies effectively, where we are combating the violence against women. 183, our call line is open for all women and children who needs support in terms of legal psychosocial counseling. And this hotline is providing services not only in Turkish but also in Arabic and also in Kurdish 7 days, 24 hours. The ones who are calling this hotline can easily reach out to our support personnel by dialing number 0. And at the same time, women support system and KADES application prepared under the supervision of our Ministry of Interior Affairs is used quite commonly. The electronic handcuff application has been spread out to 81 of our provinces as of January. And in the region of police forces and gendarmerie, all the cases are being followed without any interruption whatsoever. All those litigations and follow-ups are being carried out under the supervision of our institution, Kamer. And the relevant legislation regarding to the use of the electronic handcuffs are finalized with the contribution coming from the Ministry of Family and Social Services and the Ministry of Justice. My great nation, the fourth aim of our National Action Plan is to increase the societal sensitivity and awareness. In order to realize this aim, the institutional communication channels should be strengthened and the awareness-raising activities should be carried out, and at the same time, we should make sure that the men are involved to a greater extent in our fight targeting violence against the women, and at the same time, we should mobilize all the stakeholders of the society when we are combating this violence against women. At the same time, the private sector should actively play a role in this fight, and the media, via responsible and ethical broadcasting principle, should tackle this problem as well. So all those activities will be carried out. So 72 activities which we have defined under the scope of this National Action Plan will be realized in the upcoming 5 years. And one of those activities will be about corresponding our activities to our Turkish citizens living abroad. And in order to fight the early marriages, the trainings and education in order to increase the awareness of the fathers will be carried out as well. In addition to all those activities, certain individuals, by knowing or without knowing, unfortunately can opt for discourse which can encourage violence against women. So we should increase awareness about those wrong discourses, and we should promote the use of an alternative discourse which doesn't involve such a violent language, and those campaigns will be encouraged and promoted as well. And at the same time, we will, with all our efforts, promote the television channels and the media channels to increase awareness about this problem. Via economic and psycho-social violence and the abuse of the woman labor will be among the topics against which we will increase our awareness of the society. And the cinematography in that regard will be used in order to increase the sensitivity and awareness regarding to this topic. The fifth aim of our national action plan will be about collecting systematic, trustworthy and comparative data and the assessment of those collected statistics. Every risk factor which can lead to violence should be identified in advance because it will be highly critical for preventing the violence. On that regard, in 81 of our provinces, the risk maps regarding to the violence against women will be completed, and it will be one of our strategic targets. The interpretation of those data collected in our data bank and the identification of the perpetrators will be among those 28 activities under this main target. The data and the knowledge collected as we fight against the violence will be shared with the NGOs and university, and closer cooperation with those stakeholders will be developed as well. We hope that the scientific studies focusing on this problem will increase, and regularly the quantitative and the qualitative studies regarding to the domestic violence hopefully will create and constitute an academic literature, so that the gap between the social sciences and the domestic politics will become even shorter. As a result, high-quality activities will be carried out in that regard. Together with the Ministry of Family and Social Services and the Ministry of Justice, the data integration has been finalized until now. According to our legislation, sharing the confidentiality order with relevant stakeholders will be a reality after our integration activities for those databases have been finalized. My great nation, I have shared with you the details of our fourth national action plan, and once again, I would like to underline that this national action plan has been prepared with the responsible parties and stakeholders in our society. The main target of this national action plan is to change the approach towards violence against women, so that we can create an awareness about this issue in our society. And in order to do that, we will make use of the communication channels much more effectively, and via awareness-raising campaigns and programs, we are aiming to carry out educational activities targeting every part of our society. Combating violence against women can only be a success story with the participation of each stakeholder in our society. I am certain that the necessary steps will be taken, and we will receive the contribution of everyone in our society. Up until now, we always stood by our women who seek their rights, including but not limited to preventing violence against women, and hopefully we will continue to stand by them. The ones who are trying to present the violence against women as something ordinary will be eradicated. The universities, the local administrations, the civil society organizations, and the activities of the media in that regard will be highly important and critical. We should never forget that combating violence against women is also protecting the rights of our mothers, our wives, and at the same time our daughters. It is the fight of protecting the dignity and honor of them. After this long years of our fight, our commitment and determination in this fight only increases. I totally trust in the responsibility of my nation and their commitment to this fight. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to the preparation of this National Action Plan. On behalf of myself and my nation, I'd like to thank all the NGOs who contributed to this National Action Plan. Hopefully, this National Action Plan will increase our strength as we are establishing a more responsible society. And I'd like to greet you all with respect, love and affection.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımıza hitaplarından dolayı teşekkür ediyoruz. Zatı devletlerini fotoğraf çekimi için bir süre daha misafir edeceğiz sahnede. Fotoğraf çekimimize saygıdeğer Emine Erdoğan hanımefendiyi, Aile ve Sosyal Hizmetler Bakanımızı,
We also would like to invite the Minister of Family and Social Services, our First Lady, the Minister of Justice. We would like to invite them to the stage for the photo shootout, please.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımızın himayelerinde Aile ve Sosyal Hizmetler Bakanlığı daima mağdurun yanında
Under the supervision of our presidency, we know that the Ministry of Family and Social Services will always stand by the victims, and we come to the end of this meeting for the promotion of combating violence against women, Fourth National Action Plan. Thank you so much for your participation, Mr. President, and we would like to say thank you to our Mr. President and the First Lady. Thank you very much.